When I was in elementary school, walkie-talkies were very popular among kids at school. My friends and I also had a pair that we would take with us to explore everywhere. One day, my good friends Rinky, Shy Colin, and I decided to go explore an abandoned bowling alley. The plan was for Rinky and me to sneak into the building while Shy Colin kept watch outside. Since we only had the walkie-talkies, Rinky and I, who were in charge of exploring, used one while Shy Colin, who was outside, held the other one. The abandoned bowling alley had 3 floors. The first floor was an arcade, and the second and third floors were the bowling alley. Going up the spiral staircase to the second floor, there was a large hall. Walking further ahead were 10 bowling lanes. The third floor used to have a small restaurant. Rinky and I waved to Shy Colin, who was keeping watch outside, and set off. Then we excitedly rushed into the bowling alley. The arcade on the first floor still had colorful window stickers on the windows, but the glass had already been shattered by naughty kids. Light shone in from outside, unexpectedly making this abandoned building not too dark. Going up to the second floor was the bowling alley. There was a very large window near the stairs, was also very bright. Only the area by the lanes was a bit dark. It doesn't seem too scary. I turned on the walkie-talkie. This is Whiten and Rinky's situation normal, over. This is Shy Colin, roger that. Communication is good, no abnormalities outside, no one approaching, over. For us kids, this kind of exploration game was really exciting. Are there any ghosts in the building? Huh? Is the signal bad? The signal on Shy Colin's and suddenly seemed to become not very good. Rinky laughed and patted me. This guy is messing with us again. Nothing strange, no ghosts either, over. Then Shy Colin outside the building said, "Can I come over to your side too, over?" Rinky and I glanced at each other. Shy Colin is actually not scared today, huh? She's usually so timid, she definitely wouldn't want to come in if she encountered this situation. What's up with Shy Colin today? Maybe being alone outside is even scarier, we said and laughed. Alright, come on over then. Let's meet up first and then split up to explore. We're near the lanes on the second floor right now. Be careful of the glass when you come up, over. As soon as I finished speaking, Shy Colin replied, "Roger that, I'm coming over now. I can go down the party room stairs, right?" Hey, no, didn't I say we're on the second floor? You should go upstairs then. If you head from the entrance, just go directly up the spiral staircase for customers. Over. But I'm going downstairs now. That way we can meet, over. From our position, we could see the pottery room stairs. I looked up and saw a figure that was clearly not Shy Colin slowly walking down. Rinky and I both realized something was off. I took off running and flew down the stairs. I stumbled and fell several times along the way. I finally ran to the exit on the first floor. The door just wouldn't open. We desperately pounded on the door, but Shy Colin outside seemed not to hear and didn't open the door for us despite knocking for a long time. I could only contact her with the walkie-talkie. Hello, Shy Colin, where are you? Come open the door quickly, hello. Wait for me. I'm coming to get you now. The tone coming from the walkie-talkie fluctuated and was uncertain, just like the strange noise made when playing a recording at slow speed. This doesn't sound like Shy Colin's voice. No wonder it seemed a bit strange from the start. Wait for me. We frantically kicked the door. Finally, the door opened. Shy Colin, who was waiting outside the building, seemed to have just noticed the noise and walked over to open the door for us. She even looked at us with a confused expression. We pulled Shy Colin and left the bowling alley, running outside while briefly telling Shy Colin what had happened. Shy Colin was very surprised and said it was actually you two who were saying strange things. As soon as you entered the building, you told me a customer has arrived, over. I had no idea what you two were talking about. We had never said such a thing. The 3 of us were all baffled. At this moment, the walkie-talkie that had been turned off by the clerk actually received a voice. This is Shy Colin, can you come in one more time, over? We turned to look and only saw a dark figure pressing against the window of the bowling alley. From then on, we never went exploring in abandoned places again. I used to work at a research center in one of the many fields for researchers to conduct plant cultivation and testing experiments. The center was not open to the public and civilians were not allowed to enter freely. There were even security guards on watch most of the time. Our dormitories were located inside the center. Since the center covered such a vast area, we had to ride bicycles to get to the research building every day. 2 juniors and an assistant came to work at the center with me. I often worked in the dormitory. Therefore, after the center closed each day, there were basically only the 4 of us left. One evening in July, one of the juniors and the assistant left work early to go out and have fun outside the center. The other junior and I decided to jog and exercise inside the center. The junior and I walked through the greenhouse next to the dormitory together and reached the concrete path between the fields to start jogging. As we jogged, the junior and I separated. He seemed to be planning to take a detour while I continued running straight. As I ran alone, after running a distance of about 2 yuan, I suddenly heard the sound of someone riding a bicycle behind me. The sound was very close to me, as if the person was riding the bicycle right behind me, not far away. I turned my head curiously, wanting to see if it was the security guard patrolling the fields. But when I turned my head, there was no one on the concrete path behind me. I felt a little strange, but since it was dusk and the sky wasn't completely dark yet, I also thought of the junior and I on the concrete path. I didn't think too much in a scary direction, just felt that my ears might have a problem. I pretended not to hear the sound and continued running forward for several minutes. Suddenly, the sound of the junior jogging came from behind me. As he ran, he asked, "Senior, did you hear the sound of a bicycle following behind when you were running just now?" As I ran forward, I replied, "Oh yeah, I thought it was the security guard just now, but I didn't see anyone." "Me too," I was about to say. I just heard the sound of someone riding a bike, but I didn't see any figure. As we ran and chatted, the junior seemed to have slowly caught up to me from behind. "Senior, listen, is that bicycle sound appearing again?" I listened carefully and found that I could indeed hear the sound of someone riding a bicycle behind me again. I felt that the sound seemed to be very close behind me, so close that I had to lie to myself that it was the security guard. So close that I had no way to lie to myself that I had misheard, in order to listen carefully to whether that was really the sound of a bicycle. The junior and I both quieted down at the same time and focused on running without talking anymore. However, I did hear the sound of the bicycle getting closer and closer to me. "Senior, do you want to look back and see if he's following us?" "If you want to look, you look yourself. I don't dare to look either. Now that it's getting dark, you probably won't see anything anyway. But it feels like that sound is very close, hey? Well then, let's count to 3 and look back together." Okay, I'll count to 3. 1, 2, 3. When the junior counted to 3, I deliberately didn't look back. On one hand, I was teasing the junior a bit. On the other hand, I was also afraid of really seeing something I shouldn't see. So I deliberately looked back and let the junior look for himself. "Hey, what did you see?" The junior fell silent and didn't answer my question. "Hey, what exactly did you see?" I only heard the junior clicking his tongue loudly in displeasure and then fell into silence. "Why aren't you talking?" Suddenly, at the crossroad in front of me, a figure sprinted out from the front right at high speed. That was the junior. "What's going on?" I saw that it was the senior running in front. Then just now, who was running behind me and talking to me? The bicycle sound was still ringing behind me, but my gaze drifted aside. Just now, I felt that the junior running behind me wasn't actually running behind me, but running parallel to me in the field. His body was facing forward, but his face was turned 90 degrees towards me. He was about 5 to 6 meters away from me. But why did I feel just now that he was running behind me and talking to me? His appearance was exactly the same as the junior's, but looking at that face, it seemed like I didn't know him. His eyes were staring straight at me, and the corners of his mouth seemed to be twitching non-stop, as if he was about to burst into laughter at any moment. This thing definitely wasn't the junior. Would he run behind me from the field in the next second? And then the next second run towards me from the field? I finally became scared and started shouting the name of the junior who was running wildly in front of me. "Xiao Wen, wait for me." However, for some reason, the junior who was sprinting in front of me suddenly started accelerating when he heard me calling him. So I also started sprinting forward. Before long, I caught up with the junior, who seemed to be running for his life. When I caught up to the junior, I immediately patted his shoulder with my hand. The junior obviously trembled, looking quite startled. "Senior, you scared me to death when I was just running. You kept calling out to me from behind, asking me to look back with you to see who was riding the bicycle behind us. Then I refused to look back no matter what. But you suddenly started shouting like a broken record, 'Look back, look back, look back.' I felt that person definitely wasn't you, so I started accelerating towards the dorm. While I was talking with the junior, I secretly glanced out of the corner of my eye at the thing in the field just now. But that thing had run off somewhere. At this time, we both noticed that across a large field, there was a figure riding a bicycle at the same speed as our running. Hey, is that the security guard? It can't be. The security guard's bicycle is locked at the dorm entrance, right? And who else would stay here at this hour? The director and researchers have all left work, right? Senior, look, that person stopped. When we were running on the concrete path less than 10 meters away from the dorm, we saw the person riding the bicycle in the opposite path stop. His body got off the bicycle and started vigorously waving his hands towards us. Just as the two of us were curiously looking at that figure, wanting to see clearly which researcher he was, a waving figure suddenly started rushing towards us at an extremely fast speed. This field was very wide, and that thing had only passed a few seconds before running across more than half of the field. The two of us also started dashing towards the dorm. When we pulled open the glass door of the dorm and entered the room, we saw the thing standing in the field and not following us up the concrete path. It stood in the field with an expression of trying to hold back laughter, directly looking at me and the junior through the glass door. At this time I heard the sound of the security guard walking over from the other end of the corridor. I immediately shouted to the security guard, "Brother, look in the field. He's not from our center, right? We should call the police quickly." We quickly told the security guard about the fright in the field just now. The security guard stared at the field outside the glass door for a while before saying to us, "Didn't we tell you not to wander around the fields after dusk? We said it was poisonous snakes, but we didn't want to scare you. That thing, you don't need to pay attention to it. That thing will only stay in the fields and won't come out. In the future, don't get too close to the fields at dusk or night." Later, I heard the security guard say that thing likes to mimic people's voices or chase people in the fields at dusk. Although no one has ever heard of anything happening after being caught up, it seems that no one has really been harmed because of this. It is said that thing will only stay in the fields and won't climb onto the concrete path or go to the greenhouse area or dorm. The security guard said he had seen it a few times too, but it seems that as long as you don't get close to the fields after dark, nothing will happen. It can't come over. It's just that after hearing us say that thing told us to look back, the security guard was also quite shocked and said it was the first time he heard of that thing telling people to look back. He also didn't know what would have happened if we had been tricked. It's just that, brother, there's one thing you said wrong. One night before I went to sleep, when I passed by the glass door of the dorm on my way from my room to the kitchen at the other end of the corridor, I saw that thing standing outside the door with its palms placed next to its eyes, motionlessly peering into the dorm like peeking through a net. It can actually come over. Right after graduating, I was running around Tokyo looking for a suitable job, but to no avail. The cost of renting in Tokyo was very high, and as the days went by, I grew increasingly anxious. My friend Yamazaki saw how troubled I was and confidently patted my shoulder, saying he would take care of the job for me. He then brought me to his uncle's real estate agency. "Uncle, please arrange a job for my friend. It's hard to find work nowadays and he really needs money. Plus, he's very diligent and responsible." But Yamazaki's uncle also looked very hesitant, saying his real estate agency currently didn't need more people. Just as I was about to awkwardly pull Yamazaki to leave, an employee suddenly whispered to Yamazaki's uncle, "Boss, didn't we just need that kind of part-timer?" Yamazaki immediately stood up for me. "Uncle, how can you look down on people? He can definitely handle it." I also immediately fought for the opportunity. "Boss, please give me a chance to try. I can definitely do it." Yamazaki's uncle looked at us with a troubled expression. "You don't even know what the job is." How can you think you can do it? The employee from earlier whispered to Yamazaki's uncle again. Boss, that job is actually quite urgent. It's better to have someone go resolve it sooner. Yamazaki's uncle sighed helplessly and looked at me seriously, asking, are you afraid of supernatural things? This question stunned both me and Yamazaki. He continued, this job is for you to live in a stigmatized property for a month. There's no protection whatsoever, no matter what happens. It has nothing to do with the company. Although it's a temporary job, the salary is very high. Already at my wit's end, I only heard the last sentence. May I ask approximately how high the salary is? It's 3 times the monthly salary of a regular office worker. Hearing this, I no longer cared about the job details. What stigmatized property, what haunting? Isn't the scariest demon poverty? However, Yamazaki hesitated and advised me to go home and think it over. Maybe it was because if something really happened, he who introduced me to this job would also be held responsible. I still unhesitatingly accepted this job and agreed with Yamazaki's uncle to move into a high-end apartment in Tokyo a week later. The location of this residence was perfect, with a convenience store and supermarket right around the corner. The residence itself was also very presentable and didn't look at all like a haunted, stigmatized property. Yamazaki's uncle took me up to the 6th floor in the elevator. To the left of the elevator was the stigmatized property I would be living in for a month. The furnishings in the room were very exquisite, with clean tatami mats on the floor. The room had ample natural lights and was very cool even in today's hot weather. I couldn't help asking Yamazaki's uncle the price of this apartment, even with a discount for being a stigmatized property. This apartment was still something I could never afford. I thought to myself, this job is simply too profitable. I must enjoy life in this high-end apartment. Before leaving, Yamazaki's uncle put the key in my hand and solemnly reminded me that if I did make plans with someone in advance at night, I shouldn't casually open the door to let people in, even if it was someone I knew. Just like that, I began enjoying life in the high-end apartment while continuing to write resumes and look for jobs. The first 3 nights were very peaceful. I usually played games or watched variety shows in the living room. It wasn't until the 4th night, when I was watching a late-night variety show, that the doorbell suddenly rang. I walked to the entryway and looked out through the peephole. I don't know what I'm nervous about, it's just Yamazaki. At this moment, the Yamazaki outside the door pressed down on the door handle. For some reason, I suddenly felt something was off. I remembered Yamazaki's uncle's earlier reminder that I didn't make plans with someone in advance at night. I shouldn't casually open the door to let people in, even if it was someone I knew. Plus, I'm currently living in a stigmatized property. I called out to the Yamazaki outside the door, wait a minute, and then picked up my phone to call Yamazaki to confirm. But Yamazaki didn't answer the phone for a long time. This actually made me relieved. Right, if he's already outside the door, of course he won't answer my call. It seems living in a stigmatized property has made me all nervous and on edge. Just as I was about to reach out and open the door, hello, Yamazaki picked up the phone. Why did you come find me so late? You scared me. Just as I was about to unlock and open the door, Yamazaki replied, I didn't come find you. I'm at home right now. The hair on the back of my neck instantly stood up. I looked out through the peephole again. The Yamazaki outside the door wasn't holding a phone, just standing there motionlessly. Yamazaki, you're not joking, right? You're really at home? I quietly confirmed while secretly observing the Yamazaki outside the door. No mistake, there's a mole in his face, his height, his clothes. It's the Yamazaki I know. What exactly is going on? The Yamazaki on the phone also sounded very puzzled. My girlfriend is also at my place. How do I go find you? I listened carefully to the voice on the other end of the phone. It was the voice of Yamazaki's girlfriend, coquettishly urging him to hang up the phone. If the one on the phone with me was indeed Yamazaki, then who was standing outside the door? Thinking this, I approached the peephole again, only to find that person also leaning close to the peephole, staring straight at me. That person opened his mouth and said, "That found out so quickly, huh?" I was already so scared I couldn't move, while the door handle was being rapidly pressed from outside, feeling like the door would break at any moment. I tremblingly used the shoe cabinet to desperately block the doorway. After several minutes, the commotion at the door finally stopped. Who exactly was that person just now? Who was he? Could it be a prank by Yamazaki? That's not very likely, right? The more I looked at this luxurious, stigmatized property, the colder it seemed to become. Early the next morning, I rushed to the security room and questioned the guard why he randomly let people in and out of the apartment last night. But the guard looked puzzled and said no one had come in at all last night. Not even the sensor on the front door had gone off. The guard was even more shocked to hear about my experience last night, so he started checking the surveillance cameras. As a result, he found that no strangers had entered or exited the apartment at all last night. After 11 p.m., not even the elevator had been used, although the other cameras didn't capture anything abnormal. A man had somehow come to the door of my apartment and all the strange events from last night were captured. Just as the guard and I were intently watching, the person who had stopped shaking the door handle walked towards the camera. He raised his head and mouthed a sentence towards the surveillance camera screen, "I'll come again next time." That person smiled and walked out of the camera's view. And his departing figure wasn't captured by any other cameras either, Shizinair. The guard and I both planned to call the police. But just as the guard wanted to retrieve the surveillance footage again to search for clues, the bizarre footage from earlier had actually disappeared. The footage from the same time period turned into an empty corridor with no one. The security guard who had witnessed the strange scene with his own eyes was also very puzzled. So he left me his phone number and told me to call him if anything strange happened at night and he would immediately come up to patrol. The security guard was very kind from that day on. He often sent me messages or called to check if anything strange had happened and if I was safe. After this incident, I had a few more peaceful days, but I still made full preparations. Every night I would seal the door gaps tightly with tape and block the door with a shoe cabinet. I also prepared salt. One night, I accidentally fell asleep on the sofa after eating dinner. Suddenly, the security guard's phone call startled me awake. Hello, are you alright? I'm fine. I accidentally fell asleep after dinner just now, so I didn't reply to your message. That's good then. I even brought the spare key to come find you. Thank you, Uncle. I'm going in then. I instantly felt something was off. Even though I had already said I was fine, why did he still want to come in? Plus, although the voice was the same, the tone was very strange. I immediately rushed to the entryway to check the situation. To my surprise, the lock was being turned open just like that. I immediately used all my strength to block the door with the shoe cabinet. The door handle was still being violently shaken and the voice outside even started laughing. How fun. I desperately held the door closed for a very long time before the commotion at the door gradually disappeared and I collapsed to the ground, exhausted. The next day, I immediately went downstairs to find the real security guard. Sure enough, he hadn't called last night at all, let alone come to my house to knock on the door. The surveillance footage from my door only captured one person somehow climbing up from downstairs to the edge of the 6th floor corridor. His body moved in an extremely unnatural way, like a pieced-together puppet. He kept shaking the door handle and even tried to squeeze his face into the door gap. That day, a job where you can easily earn a handsome salary simply doesn't exist.